When Hitler died in 1945, he left behind a secret fortune worth over 700 million Reichsmarks, more than $5 billion today. But he started his adult life sleeping in homeless shelters, selling postcards just to survive. How did a failed artist transform into one of the world's wealthiest men? And what happened to his fortune when he died? In 1889, Adolf Hitler was born to Alois Hitler, a customs official in the Austrian town of Braunau am Inn. The family enjoyed modest middle-class stability. Young Adolf dreamed of becoming an artist, defying his father's wishes for a more conventional path. That dream collapsed in 1907 when the Vienna Academy of Fine Arts rejected Hitler's application twice. The rejections left him stranded in Vienna with no backup plan and dwindling funds. His orphan's pension of 25 kronen couldn't cover basic expenses in the expensive capital. Poverty set in. His daily life became a grim routine. He slept in homeless shelters, wandered the streets with a portfolio of postcards, and tried to sell his work for a few coins, just enough for a night's lodging and a meal. He shoveled snow, carried luggage, and sold cheap watercolors. Many days he earned nothing. Eventually, he moved into a men's hostel, cheap, crowded, and filthy. He lived among society's cast-offs, the unemployed, the addicted, the broken. This community of outcasts hardened his worldview. He spent hours reading newspapers and anti-Semitic pamphlets in the hostel's common room, his bitterness deepening as his prospects narrowed. By 1913, Hitler inherited 820 kronen from his father, enough to leave Vienna and head to Munich. The move ended years of crushing poverty and gave him new hope of reviving his artistic ambitions. Later, he would mythologize these Vienna years, claiming to understand the common worker's pain. But the man who once sold postcards on street corners would one day live in opulence, preaching sacrifice to a population living on rations. His hunger for wealth was born in the shelters of Vienna, but it would be fed by power. In November 1923, Hitler's failed beer hall putsch landed him in Landsberg prison, but behind bars he saw opportunity. Dictating to Rudolf Hess, he began crafting his political autobiography, part memoir, part manifesto, the title Mein Kampf, My Struggle. Published in 1925 by Max-Hemann's Franz Eher Verlag, the first volume landed with a thud. Most Germans ignored the rambling 700-page diatribe. Bookstores couldn't sell it. Critics dismissed it as incoherent propaganda. Hitler watched his big literary debut go nowhere. Then came the crash. The global depression of 1929 shattered Germany's economy and trust in mainstream politics. As desperation spread, Hitler's radical solutions suddenly looked appealing. Sales of Mein Kampf ticked upward in 1930. By 1931, they were climbing steadily. Each Nazi electoral success boosted book sales. Rallies doubled as marketing events. News coverage stoked curiosity. And once Hitler seized power in 1933, the party turned Mein Kampf into a cultural requirement. Newlyweds received free copies. Schools assigned it. Civil servants had to read it to advance. The book became inescapable. Sales exploded. By 1933, annual sales hit 1.5 million copies. Between 1925 and 1933, Hitler earned 1.2 million Reichsmarks, enough to free him from financial worry forever. International editions added even more. Mein Kampf appeared in 16 languages, including English, French, and Italian. Publishers abroad paid hefty royalties, even in countries increasingly at odds with Germany. US and British publishers paid advances despite the political tensions. By 1939, the book had sold over 5 million copies. During the war, it was distributed en masse to soldiers and workers. By Hitler's death in 1945, 12 million copies had circulated across Germany and occupied Europe. The journey from literary flop to political scripture took nearly 2 decades, but it made Hitler rich. Ironically, Mein Kampf didn't just spread his ideology, it gave him the financial freedom to spread it further. But that success came with a problem: taxes. And Hitler had no intention of paying them. By 1932, Hitler was raking in money from Mein Kampf royalties and speaking fees, but he hadn't filed a single tax return. He treated taxes as optional. His income was no secret. Thousands of Reichsmarks poured in every month, yet he paid nothing. The Munich tax office opened an investigation in 1933. By early 1934, they tallied his unpaid taxes and presented him with a bill: 405,494 Reichsmarks, about $1.6 million in today's money. It covered years of evasion, plus penalty. Hitler's response? He ordered the finance ministry to declare him tax exempt. A state secretary intervened on his behalf. Soon after, the head of the Munich tax office declared, "All tax reports delivering substance for a tax obligation by the Führer are annulled from the start. The Führer is therefore tax exempt." While ordinary Germans went to jail for far less, Hitler erased his tax bill with a signature. The implications were staggering. Millions of Reichsmarks that should have gone to the treasury now stayed in Hitler's personal accounts. His income, book royalties, party payments, speaking fees, government salary, was now tax-free. Effectively, his wealth increased by 40%, the standard tax rate for high earners. This exemption became a cornerstone of his personal fortune. While the German people were taxed, rationed, and punished for small violations, Hitler accumulated untouchable wealth, shielded by power, protected by fear. It wasn't just about greed, it was about control. Tax-free, consequence-free, and answerable to no one, Hitler positioned himself above the law, and his fortune was just getting started. His first major investment, the Berghof. Originally a modest Alpine cottage, he bought it in 1928. After rising to power, he used Nazi Party funds to transform it into a luxurious mountainside estate, complete with guest quarters, conference rooms, and panoramic terraces. The Berghof was just the beginning. For his 50th birthday, Nazi officials commissioned the Eagle's Nest, a dramatic mountaintop retreat accessible only by elevator tunneled through solid rock. Presented as a state facility, it served mostly as a monument to Hitler's ego. The money? Party slush funds, donations, and state budgets, funneled into personal comfort. Art became his next obsession. Agents scoured Europe to acquire pieces, sometimes legally, often through coercion. Jewish collectors were forced to sell masterpieces at a fraction of their value or simply had them stolen. The works were meant to be for his Grand Führer Museum in Linz, a vanity project that doubled as a vault for his hoarded wealth. Hitler also commissioned custom Mercedes-Benz limousines with security upgrades, again paid through party channels. These vehicles weren't just transport, they were rolling propaganda, symbols of dominance wrapped in polished steel. Much of this luxury was bankrolled by Germany's richest industrialists. Fritz Thyssen, Gustav Krupp, and other titans of steel and arms funneled millions to the Nazi Party. In return, they got influence, and Hitler got blank checks. He treated party accounts as his own, funding private projects without scrutiny. At the Berghof alone, dozens of staff maintained the dictator's lifestyle. Cooks, guards, valets, gardeners. He dined on gourmet meals, drank fine wine, and wore tailored clothing, all while preaching sacrifice to a population standing in ration lines. By the late 1930s, Hitler's fortune had outgrown German banks. He needed somewhere safer, beyond the Reich, beyond reach. Switzerland's legendary banking secrecy offered the perfect vault for Hitler's growing fortune. Its neutrality and confidentiality laws shielded accounts from outside scrutiny, but the full extent of Hitler's Swiss holdings remains unknown. Many records were destroyed during the war's chaotic final months. His longtime business manager, Max Amann, a trusted World War I comrade, handled Hitler's finances. Amann coordinated income from multiple streams, royalties from Mein Kampf, public speaking fees, misappropriated state funds, and even postage stamp image rights. The system required careful management to keep up the flow and the secrecy. Mein Kampf alone generated millions annually. Remarkably, international copyright law meant that even after war broke out, royalties from publishers in Britain and the US continued arriving, until American authorities finally seized $255,000 under the Trading with the Enemy Act. But by then, much had already been transferred. Hitler also diversified. He invested in real estate, filled warehouses with stolen art, and converted cash into assets that retained value across currencies. These weren't just indulgences, they were insurance policies. As the war turned against Germany, Hitler increasingly relied on neutral countries to safeguard his wealth. Assets were moved abroad, some documented, many not. The destruction of financial records during Germany's collapse erased trails, while key financial handlers vanished or died. This international financial web was more than greed, it was contingency. Hitler knew absolute power could vanish overnight. Hidden wealth meant options, exile, re-emergence, or retreat. But when he died in his Berlin bunker in April 1945, whatever escape plan he'd imagined never materialized. His empire of hidden millions faded into the fog of post-war Europe. As Nazi Germany collapsed, Allied forces scrambled to locate Hitler's vast assets. His secret will declared that his fortune should go to the Nazi Party, or if the party no longer existed, to the German state. But both had vanished within days of his death. With Germany in ruins and divided into Allied occupation zones, legal authority over Hitler's wealth became unclear. Eventually, Bavaria, his official residence, assumed control. Investigators uncovered records of multiple income streams, vast property holdings, and art collections worth billions in today's money. But much of it had already disappeared. Documents were destroyed, key handlers were dead or missing, tracing the money became nearly impossible. One small victory came from the United States under the Trading with the Enemy Act. The US government seized $255,000 in Mein Kampf royalties and redirected them to refugee charities, one of the few assets cleanly recovered from his financial empire. In Germany, the Bavarian state quietly took control of domestic royalties. For decades, they funneled proceeds to charitable causes while keeping Mein Kampf out of circulation. That changed in 2016 when the copyright expired and the book entered the public domain. Hitler's physical properties met varied fates. His Munich apartment was seized and repurposed. The Berghof was bombed into rubble. The Eagle's Nest survived and was eventually converted into a tourist site. The art he intended for his Linz museums scattered across Europe. Some stolen pieces were returned to rightful owners. Others vanished, stolen again, lost in transit, or buried in private collections. Even Hitler's personal effects became macabre trophies. A globe from his residence sold at auction for $115,000. His red telephone, used to issue wartime orders, fetched $229,000. Gold-plated pistols, once symbols of absolute power, have sold for millions. And yet the vast bulk of his fortune simply vanished, lost in war, fire, corruption, and time. The man who built an empire on stolen wealth left behind little more than ruins and riddles. In the end, Hitler's fortune proved as hollow as his promises, dissolved in the same chaos he unleashed on the world. Well, that's it. Thank you for watching. We hope you found this video informative. If you enjoyed learning about today's topic, make sure to check out our video, What Happened to Hitler's Family After World War II. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit the notification bell to stay updated on more World War II content. And we'll see you in the next one.